Greetings, everyone, and welcome. August the 7th, 2025. And this is a critical day in the war in Ukraine because there are so many things happening that affect it outside of Ukraine. We know about Witkoff's meeting yesterday. We've heard from Dmitriev, Ushakov. We've heard from Shoigu. You may not have, but you will in a moment. We've heard from Marco Rubio. President Donald Trump had his press conference about Apple last night. Russia, Ukraine up, waiting to see if there was any information coming out. And there was a few pieces in the press conference. But today is a day where we must fact check everything. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing, liking, commenting, subscribing. You really don't know how just taking the moment to subscribe and put the bell on helps. It's so encouraging as we do our best to share the truth. So let's jump straight in. I've got video for you. I've got everything for you ready to roll. It is 2 o'clock here in Ukraine, so 2 o'clock in Moscow, and so many things are happening. If you're in the United States, you're going to wake up to this. If you're in Asia or Europe, where I'm at, this is going to be happening real time. So meeting confirmed, question mark. Let's fact check it now. This is where we're at because there's so much rhetoric going on, and it actually started with this 2 hours ago. Kirill Dmitriev, Russia confirms Putin-Trump summit may happen next week, and summit preparations are ongoing. This can be a historic meeting. Now, he's starting to use this phrase every time. Dialogue will prevail. It's so slick on the Russian side. But this has really started a firestorm of rhetoric and talk over here in Ukraine and the parts of the world that are awake that there's going to be a meeting happening. No, look at it closely. Putin-Trump summit may happen next week. So let's just leave that there. This is what has started the firestorm, and let's look at some facts. First of all, you have Ushakov on the right there. Basically, he is Putin's right-hand man. He said the next week is marked as a reference point for the potential meeting between Putin and Trump, but it is still difficult to say how many days the preparation will take. Now that's the golden Russian answer there, okay? But this is where we're at. Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State of the United States, also last night making a statement that we need to pay attention to because we're fact checking. Here we go.
You think, Secretary, that a meeting, quote unquote, either a meeting with Putin or a meeting with the three of them would occur next week? Are you optimistic about that? Yourself included, I suppose. I don't want to shortchange our Secretary of State. But do you think a meeting will come next week?
I don't know if it'll be next week or not. Well, it remains to be seen. I think it'll depend a lot on how much progress we can make. This is important in the sense that we think what happened was good because we have a sense now of what conditions the Russians would require in order to end the war. Now, they may not be the conditions Ukraine can accept or, frankly, that others would accept, but at least we have something to work off of. So I think a lot of that is going to depend now on how close can we bring the two sides to each other? Can we make enough progress? Can we get 85% of the way there, 75% of the way there? Because I don't think you can have a leaders level meeting if you're not close enough, because then nothing's going to come of that meeting. So we want to get it close enough, and then we want to give the president the opportunity to come in and close it. So I can't prejudge how long that could take. It could take hours. It could take days. Frankly, it could take weeks. We don't know. But we're going to try here. We're working on it, even as we speak.
So this is where we're at. That is a statement of Marco Rubio. And I think, if we back up a moment, it's very fair. He says, listen, we now know what the Russians want. Now, on that, we've known what Putin wants. He keeps reaffirming that June 2024 speech. I want all four regions, demilitarized Ukraine, no NATO, and the list goes on. But it's like Rubio saying, okay, now we know what Putin wants again. Now, unless that's been changed, we are not privy to that information. He then states truth. These are conditions that Ukraine may not accept. They may not be willing. Europe may not accept. That's why we can't say, but we're working on it. I think this is the most factual representation of where we are currently at. I remind you that today is a day not to be emotionally driven, but to be fact driven. So let's go here. Who do we need to listen to next? We need to hear from President Vladimir Zelensky and Donald Trump, President of the US. So up until the very minute of literally, I was going to hit the button to record this video, there was zero statements from Zelensky publicly in regard to specific talks, okay? But just as I was recording, 2 o'clock here in Ukraine in the afternoon, early afternoon, Zelensky made this one statement. It's time to end the war, and Ukraine isn't afraid of talks and expects the same courage from Russia. So, all indicators pointing. And Ukraine's never been afraid of talks. Ukraine's never afraid to end the war, but we need to end it with a just peace, a lasting peace, a fair peace, a sovereign Ukraine, a Ukraine that has a future and a hope. This is where we're at, not just a capitulation to the Kremlin. So, what did Trump say last night, just hours ago, really? I stayed up to 1 o'clock in the morning here in Ukraine to listen to it and was very disappointed, honestly, just having the Apple show. But President Trump, when he was questioned by reporters after, gave us a pretty good clue of where we're at. I think you need to listen to this.
President, in the past, you said you would know if Putin was tapping you along. What gives you any confidence that he is or isn't doing that this time around?
Can't answer the question yet. I'll tell you in a matter of weeks, maybe less. But we've made a lot of progress.
So that puts us back to 2-week Trump. This is a fact. I always want to be factual. And I know people run with the taco and the 2 weeks and the 10 days and the 24 hours, but you just heard it out of his own mouth. I don't know if he's tapping me along or not, and I'll know within a couple of weeks, maybe sooner. So we can't confirm from that. There'll be no meeting next week between Putin and Trump. For me personally, a meeting that of that level where there's no Zelensky, I have a problem with personally, because that is the president of the second nation involved in the war, and it should not be a one-sided meeting. But if it's needed to get us to the next level to have a three-way meeting, we can go with that. But the reality is Trump just stated, I don't know if he's tapping me along or not. That's where we're at. This was just stated hours ago. This is a fact. All right, let's continue up. There are other key things happening today. India fired up, man, and Modi, I may put a video out later, put another speech out, and he was mimicking how he's going to be India first, make India great again, talking about his farmers and his agriculture, and we're not going to bow to the enemy, not the enemy, that's not what he said. We're not going to bow to the pressures of the world that want to push us around. We now have confirmation that there's going to be a direct meeting at the end of August between Vladimir Putin and Modi of India. So put that in your index. Also, Shoigu, the secretary of the Security Council of Russia, he was the supreme commander there or defense minister for about 12 years, 2012 to 2024. Now he's the secretary of the Security Council. He was meeting with Indian delegation. Just take a listen at this.
For our country, it is of primary importance to strengthen privileged strategic partnership with India based on trust, mutual respect, consideration of each other's interests, and the desire to promote the unifying agenda.
Trust, mutual respect, and working together. So that's the talk going on between Russia and India. All these things are happening. Now, okay, here's the other player in this game, and it is China. China. The Chinese embassy there in the United States has addressed officially the President of the United States warnings of additional sanctions against Beijing for working with Moscow. 3 statements. The U.S. attempt to pressure China into abandoning its partnership with Russia will prove futile. So all of these narratives, these different nations that are involved, And we can talk about the West and NATO and BRICS and the separation and the division and the new world order that is trying to be developed and making progress. All of this is connected with this war in Ukraine, this Russian horrible invasion and reckless devastation, scorched earth policy in Ukraine. You can then tack onto it connection with the war in Israel and Gaza, Iran, you name it. So, second statement, the international community's lawful cooperation with Russia does not harm third countries. Now, this is in reference to the secondary sanctions or tariffs that will be coming. And we know we're on the countdown for that. So if it's interesting, Trump says, I don't know if Putin's tapping me along or not. We're really 24 to 36 hours away from what should be sanctions on Russia, on other nations like China. It just started with India. So we shall see. Facts only. Third, China seeks mutually beneficial relations with the U.S. Trade wars produce no winners. So there's the Chinese view. Now, right now, about 1 hour ago, about 1 o'clock Moscow time, President Sheikh Mohammed landed in Moscow, and he is currently meeting with Vladimir Putin. He is the president of the UAE, United Arab Emirates. So just think about all these meetings. After Witkoff yesterday, Putin went straight into a big meeting with Malaysia, the king of Malaysia. And now he's talking with the president of the UAE. A lot is happening behind the scenes. And if you do not think they're talking about tariffs, sanctions, war in Ukraine, then probably need to rethink, because that for sure is what they are talking about in addition to other things. Finally, maybe you want a little Ukrainian perspective on this. And the only one really that is constantly out there with a voice that has responded to this in kind of a logical way has been Anton Gerashenko. So just a little while ago, he wrote, Putin is being told that the Russian army is greatly succeeding on the front lines and that the Ukrainian defense forces will only be able to fight for several more months. And that has been confirmed. And to be honest, facts only, Russia's making some serious moves in places like Kupiansk, Siversk, coming up into the southern side of Konstantinivka, Pokrovsk, Mirnograd, Dobropilia. And yes, we'll be looking at all those areas on the maps. And yes, we will be in those areas the best we can, dropping aid and helping our guys. Second, he said Putin hopes that the Russian economy is in a better state than it actually is. He says Putin's personal power is grounded on this war continuing. I completely agree with that. Putin has resisted conducting a mass draft, but it will be needed. This goes along with what I've been trying to convey to the world for years. You haven't seen a large-scale draft in Russia yet. Doesn't matter what you're hearing. Oh, well, they add 30,000 new soldiers every month. They brought in North Korea because they have no people. You have not seen a mass draft in Russia yet. I don't care what anybody says. That's a fact. Number 5, continuing the war will also lead to increased sanctions against Russia, decrease in its oil revenues, and downfall of the Russian economy that will lead to Russia's full dependence from China. Fantastic. Once again, Russia has to be defeated in this war, militarily, economically, and intrinsically. That's what has to happen for victory, not only for Ukraine, but for the rest of the world. Obviously, we don't know a lot that's going on behind the scenes all over the world, Gerashenko says. But Ukrainians have so much hope. We want a just and lasting peace. We must keep calm and continue our work, help Ukrainian defense forces, and make a Ukrainian military production industry stronger. He is spot on with that. And I'm telling you from inside Ukraine, it's difficult. But Ukrainians have not given up hope. They've lost too much to just lay down everything and quit. Not going to happen. So we will see where we go from here, but you are fully updated as of early afternoon, Ukraine and Moscow time, on what is unfolding in regard to this meeting. You guys be blessed. Make sure that notification bell is on. We'll be back at you at any moment.